Hello again, everybody. I'm glad you could join me. I thought I would do a little reading from the first chapter from the second part of the Eye of the Unicorn series. So this is just continuing the story on and seeing where it goes. Okay, everybody, are you ready to hear the first chapter of Eye of the Unicorn, Price of Paradise? His breath came in ragged gasps as he fought exhaustion in the dark, cold cavern. He sensed the awful presence of his enemy, the winged leader of the Cuck, and he fought the despair in his heart. Remruk, chieftain of the United Sand clans, gripped his battle axe and struggled to his feet. He was their last line of defence, their last hope. The fetid breath of the Cuck clawed its way into his lungs, and he coughed. A soft step behind him caused him to turn. He saw Heriah, the beautiful chieftain of the Nem, and his only love, making her way into the cave, a torch in her hand as she peered through the gloom. He tried to speak, but his mind felt numb. No thoughts came to him as he projected with all his telepathic ability on every channel available, trying to warn her, trying to turn her back. To his horror, he saw Kermer, his twin brother, and Kermer's mate, Sorta, clutching her babe to her chest as she followed behind. He felt panic rise within him. Remruk struggled to raise the axe, his limbs heavy and moving slowly. He was unable to act quickly enough when he heard his beloved Heriah scream as the Cuck lunged down on her, biting her in half and swallowing his gory feast. The torch fell to the floor, its light dancing madly round the cavern as it rolled in the dirt. Through the flashes of light, he could see his brother dying as he defended Sorter, their babe falling to the ground, silent and still. No! His mind ripped apart as he felt the pain of his family's death. Then the Kirk turned on him. Blind fury drove Remruk, but to no avail. He stared down the gaping jaws of his enemy, and he was engulfed. The screams of the Cuck jolted him awake, and he slowly realised it was his own mind shouting out in fear. Remruk stumbled from his sleeping platform, reeling in confusion, his mind in turmoil. Standing breathless in his room, he slowly realised it had been a dream. Remruk was panicking, breathing hard and clutching his sword, which always lay at the side of his platform, while his beloved mate Heriah watched him with pained eyes. Remruk. Heriah's gentle thoughts coolly flowed into his still jumbled head. It's fine. You're safe now. She could barely hear the reply as he turned away. It was so real. I was there once more, in the cavern and sun. I saw. He could not finish. Instead, he went into the bathing room to soak in the pool of steaming water. He still limped from his injured leg, the wasted muscles slowly rebuilding themselves. Heriah rose and began to dress. This was becoming a frequent occurrence. Almost every night he would awaken afraid, trembling, and falling from his platform, ready to do battle with the Cuck. She'd even tried slipping sleeping draughts into his water before he retired, but it had not helped. Sighing in frustration that she, a master healer, could not fix the hurt in Remruk's mind, she fixed her flowing locks of auburn hair into a fashionable plait. I have to meet with Lenter early today, she said. We will be setting out a training programme for Deka and Mora. Hoping he would believe her small lie, she slipped out of the room and their house. She walked along the dusty roadway as dawn crept over the horizon, lost in her worried thoughts. Kermer woke with a start. He sensed the panic in his brother's mind, and his heart raced. Then it was gone, and he realised that Remruk was having another nightmare. Kermer too had been there through the battles. He had seen his brother near to death, being dragged back into their city as he returned from the Taro clan's territory, with the Cuck hot on his trail. Kermer thought it was strange that he, a healer and not warrior trained, seemed to be unaffected by the memories of the terrible battles fought in Sun. He suspected that the Edor had something to do with this. Ever since he had asked Thur to heal Remruk, he had felt different inside, calmer, more assured, almost detached from the emotions of his memories. He nudged his mate Sorta into wakefulness. Sorta, wake up! She grunted, and buried her face into the furs. Remrick is still having terrible dreams. He even woke me up. It was so bad. And now, my love, you've decided to wake me, she said, a little disgruntled. Ignoring her ill temper, he sat up. It's getting worse almost every night. He swung his legs onto the floor, unable to find sleep again. I just don't know what to do. I have been administering sleeping draughts, but it doesn't seem to work. How do you take the pain of what he's suffered away from him? And we have not suffered also, she replied quietly, sorrow and grief colouring her thoughts. Kurma reached over and held her close. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, he replied. He seemed emotionally detached from the death of his son and the near death of his mate at the claws of the Cuck, but Sorta still held that pain deep inside, even as the new love of their adopted son Dacre slowly numbed their rawness. Every so often the pain would rise to the surface, and now he had accidentally stirred it into her heart once more. It's fine, she lied, I'm fine. It's just that I don't understand why Remrick is haunted by this. He's a warrior, trained to fight from a young age. He's been in many battles, has never had this problem before. Why should the Kirk return to his mind now? Sorta resigned herself that she too would need to get up and start the day. Kurma didn't say anything, but he suspected there was more to this than met the eye. He dressed slowly, pondering on the possible reason behind his brother's anxiety. Well, he turned to see Sorta staring at him. Aren't you going to tell me? Tell you what? He asked. My mate, do you really think you can hide anything from me? I know your clever mind is turning over possibilities, and I want to know what you suspect. Sorta frowned and folded her arms in annoyance. This just made Kurma laugh at her pretty face, all scrunched up. Stop it, she demanded, trying not to smile. Tell me. All right, he said. Remrick is more sensitive than you think. He has a highly developed sense of danger and threat. If he's having bad dreams, then it may be that, deep down, he senses something bad or dangerous that may harm us all. His mind is trying to warn him to be prepared for something. An attack, maybe. An attack, said Sorta. From whom? You don't think the Cuck have found the crystal ring and are trying to follow us here? Her mind became tinged with fear and panic. I don't know, maybe, replied Kurma, not believing for one moment that the threat came from the Cuck. I could be wrong, but I'm going to try to find out. He turned to leave. Why don't you wake Dacre and meet up with Araya and Mora? Maybe discuss teaching sessions with Lenta when she rises. He didn't wait for a reply. He was dressed and ready to leave, intending to head out of the city and into the forest where he could not be seen. He was going to speak to Thur. Lenta dozed fitfully. She was getting old, and her body refused to listen to her any more. Giving up trying to sleep, she sat by her window in a comfortable chair carved by the neem from the trees in the forest. It was padded in all the right places, and she could watch the torches in the city flicker and dance in the gentle breeze that wound its way around the streets below. She had made a promise to her mate's sons, a promise to be fair and just when training their children, but she was still uneasy. There would come a day when the Sand People would want to choose, and that may yet still cause unrest and division amongst the fragile culture now developing. The chieftains thought they had solved the problem, but in reality, they had just delayed it. Sighing, she tapped her gnarled hands on the armrests and did a mental scan of her body. Her heart was failing, and failing fast. Deep in her mind, she had started to feel an old and familiar presence. She could feel her long-dead mate Storn calling her from the void, and she knew it would not be long now before she joined him. She worried that she would not have enough time to do her duty. What then? How would Remrick and Kurma cope without her guidance? In her eyes, they were still the children of her sister mate Saldelna, running around her skirts, getting in the way and filling their world with joy. Now look at them. Look at what they had achieved. They were fully grown with mates and children of their own. They'd experienced more in their short lives than any other San and had overcome so much to achieve their goals. Lenta smiled to herself. They would be fine. They would find a way to make it work. They always did. She closed her eyes, her heart faltering slightly before regaining its steady beat. Not long now, she thought to herself, as sleep finally caught up with her. El, the great leader of the Eador, had gathered his people around him. By his side, as always, was Thur, and they both surveyed the vista of chance swirling around them. The Eador were an enigma. They were the builders of worlds and much, much more, existing on many different planes of reality simultaneously. Their vast minds could view the time streams of possibility that writhed and tangled itself around and through all of these realities. Their difficult task was to choose the best route that would benefit all life in each of their intricate existences and steer the many universes to an unseen goal. The arrival of the San on this world that they had built and hidden outside of time itself had been unforeseen. This was troubling the Eador. It had never happened before, and now every pathway had changed. El, the most senior of their race and the most powerful, was carefully calculating the best way forwards to bring them back into balance. The bodies they wore in this reality were strange and exotic. They walked on 4 spindly legs, having no need for hands, as they could manipulate matter itself with their minds. Their necks were long and covered in shaggy silver hair, and their heads sported a row of horns with a large central horn between their eyes. It was their eyes that were the most mysterious of all. The pupils, if that's what you could call them, were many and constantly spinning and circling around each other, never still, always changing colour and mesmerising to watch. "I think you're being summoned," said El to Thur. "Kermer is calling you from the forest." "I know. He is so perceptive. He senses what we are about to do," replied Thur. "I suppose we should begin." He vanished from their city to materialise in the reality of the San. "Thur!" shouted Kermer, his mind projecting at maximum capacity, knowing full well the Eador could hear him. "Stop ignoring me!" He turned in a circle, staring at the trees. "I need to speak to you now." "You're up early," came the familiar thought from behind him as he turned to see the Eador staring. "What is going on?" asked Kermer. "What is going to happen?" Thur looked at him in surprise. "How can I know what is going to happen? It all depends on what is done now." "Stop talking in riddles. You know full well what I mean," said Kermer, more than a little frustrated. Thur looked at him for a very long time, his strange eyes whirling at a dizzying speed. "Oh, you mean this?" Kermer saw a flash of light, then nothing. He was enveloped in darkness, his mind unconscious. Well, I hope you enjoyed that little snippet and intro to Price of Paradise. And it gets very intriguing. Lots of plot twists as the story unfolds, as we carry on in the legend that is Remrick and Kermer. So this is about to be released. It's at the publishers at the moment, so will be released this year, and of course will be available on all major online retailers. So get out there, get a copy, get reading, guys, because this is a doozy. Lots of questions will be answered in this book, and a lot more questions will be raised by the end of it for the next in the series. Thanks very much for joining me again, and I hope you've enjoyed this. And remember, get out there, get some reading done, and enjoy yourself. You take care and have a good day.